well get started. You all seem to be here, and that's good news because there were a lot that didn't make it, and so you all get special stars today. I know I made you do a little work on these boards, and I hope you have voted because it's going to impact a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. So if you've not had a chance to go up and put your little stickers on those papers, we won't look at who's up there. You could just go up on your own and put a sticker or two in place so we have some ideas of how you all feel about what's the most important issue facing your organization. I'm the Joanne Wise, as I bet you could figure out from the three names up front and me being the only female in this group. And I'm really very happy to introduce Russ Maitland, who's our new guy in town, and with Northern Stage as their executive director. You're going to hear a lot more from him and about him in a few minutes, but it's great that Russ came to town and he said, you know what, I've already approached a couple of organizations to do some collaborating. I hope you'll be able to share some of that story. And so it kicked me into gear to say, hey, how can we all get together and think about working together? So you may have said, you know, I think I've seen that line before, let's do something together. It came from Home Depot, so I stole it and changed a word. But I felt really strongly that it was time for us, because of all the financial pressures that are really on our back, that we should really try and find common ground and see if there were ways that we could work. So today's agenda is really to just talk about that, and in three ways. And that's why I had you vote for the three. And the first, of course, is in marketing. The second is in reaching new audiences. And the third is in having conversations with new businesses. And we will be spending a little bit more time on each of those issues. And Russ is also going to present a little PowerPoint presentation so that it sets up the whole reason for our being. But I do want to turn around and have Louis Cornell, who is, he and I are kind of what you would call, who is the Arts Alliance? And we are the Arts Alliance. Many people would think, oh my God, they must have casts of thousands behind them, and we don't. So the idea, too, that you are here with us, we hope that you will become more active members in our alliance, because indeed, you are already our alliance, and you are the ones that make the arts important in our community. And I really, really am grateful for all that you do. Louis Cornell, along with Joe Clifford, who is sitting right over here. Joe is with the Hawkins Center, and I helped start that Arts Alliance in 2004. And so, for some reason, the fact that we're standing here today means that we are alive and well, and we hope to keep going. So without too much more to say, I'm going to say, Louis, take it away.
Thanks. Joanne asked me to say a word or two about the Arts Alliance and its history and background, and I promised that I would be brief, although there's actually quite a lot of story there. We're talking about 8 or 9 years of activity involving a great many people, volunteers and others. The Arts Alliance it grew out of a conference on the creative economy back in 2004. It was one of a number of projects that brought people together, and it began with a group of energetic and committed volunteers. A dozen or so of us began it. We had to make a choice early on between organizing ourselves into in a sense, an incorporated organization, or to continue on as an informal gathering of people with expertise and commitments in the arts in the area. We chose the latter course, and that really determined our history. There were advantages to it. We brought in people from a great many different areas in the arts in the region. Each of them had a project or projects in which they felt they had a particular interest, and we worked on that basis with a number of projects, large and small. We had mixers for artists and communities all around the Upper Valley. We had an enormous arts day in Lebanon that brought a couple of thousand people out. That pretty much, how shall I say, led to mass burnout. We We ran an e-newsletter. I was responsible for that. I mailed to about 450 subscribers. I did that for 2 or 3 years before I burned out on that. We tried to put together, with some success, a database that incorporated the information that we were getting in from artists and arts organizations. Amazingly, there is no such database in existence because we are such a varied and various group. We're still working on it, but eventually I think that's a goal that we're aiming for, a way of bringing together the constituencies that we feel the Alliance should represent. That is to say, the presenting organizations, journals, schools, businesses that are related to the arts, the whole schmear, the whole collection. It's a big challenge. Quite early on, we set up a very modest website, and that grew over the years until a couple of years ago, a local for-profit organization invited us to hand it over to them, suggestion that they would be able to run it and have it make enough money to support their work. They were able to keep that going for a year and a bit more, but they discovered that, in fact, it wasn't enough to pay the bills. So by mutual agreement, we stepped aside from that arrangement and took back the website for ourselves. And last summer, Joanne and I, with help of a number of professional consultants, learned a great deal about setting up a website and eventually designed and produced the website that we now call the Gateway to the Arts in the Upper Valley. I don't know how many of you have seen this. In fact, it might be instructive to ask for show of hands if you have visited www.uvarts.org. It's up there. There's a card on the table that will give you a colorful note of what it is. Now, the difference between the website as it stands now and what has come before is that although it depends on input from a number of arts organizations, we have people who are actually doing the day-to-day work for us. Angelina Tagliatella, in particular, who's standing back here behind the camera, her day job is with CATV, but she is our website manager and does an excellent job. Ryan Collette of Ryco Designs comes up and helps us with designs when we need it. It is there. We would like you to take a look at it. We feel that it's a pretty good example of joint marketing for the arts that can be done on a very modest budget, and that's one of the things that we're all looking for. Rather than describe the website, which would be complicated, I just invite you to pick up a card if you don't have it and go and take a look at it yourselves. Now, that's about all I want to say at the moment about the Arts Alliance. The future really is in your hands. Joanne and I have agreed that we'll continue doing what we're doing for about a year. And if at the end of 2013 we haven't succeeded in getting a flow of cash and volunteer time, then we're going to go and do the other things that we're famous for. But in the meantime, you're here, and I hope that you have a chance to express your views about what we can do together. And in order to help you to do that, let me introduce Russ Maitland, the Executive Director of Northern States.
We're going to segue just a little bit of time for a commercial. Those who did come in a little late, would you mind feeling more comfortable taking your jacket off and finding some coffee or tea and perhaps even voting? And let's just take 5 minutes and do that so that we're sure that we have everybody who is here and wants to vote, does vote.
And it was based on one person.
Now we have guest artists. Sculptor. I just didn't say hi, so you will listen. Yeah, last flight.
Let me just stress the importance of this alliance. I have been actively working in the arts now for about 30 years, both on the West Coast and on the East Coast. And these alliance organizations that form within these towns and these cities are so important to all the nonprofits. And I don't care whether you're a $2 million budgeted nonprofit or you're a $200,000 nonprofit. It is so important that these ideas come and that the tasks are given and action is taken. Because we could just sit here all day and talk about wonderful marketing ideas and partnership ideas and how we can build our donor base up, but unless the action is taken and we can proceed to move forward, it's not going to help. This alliance, for me, is important because you have a chance to work together as a community of nonprofit organizations in order to possibly minimize your expenses. One of the biggest things that is working out right now in Philadelphia and in DC is organizations are coming together and doing co-op, where they would sit together and they say, okay, how can we take one item expense on our expense list and see if we can utilize it within all of the other nonprofits. Marketing, advertising would be primarily the number one thing. A lot of organizations right now, what they're doing is instead of each of us taking an individual ad into a paper, we combined our resources together, do one huge listing so that we are not having to spend a ton of money in marketing and advertising for our own nonprofit. There are other ways. Printing. Printing is another way of getting expenses cut down for ourselves by doing co-op printing, which is we utilize one printing organization and they do a massive job for all printing for all nonprofits. These are the types of things that I think the alliance is important because they can help you gather together and try to eliminate some of these major expenses that you guys are having on your, that you're constantly facing every day. I'm right now in the midst of budgets right now for Northern Stage. I've been behind closed doors for the last 3 days doing budget. And I'm looking at expenses and I'm going, my God, the amount of money that we spend on advertising and marketing and printing, it's unbelievable. If there was ways of controlling those expenses and minimizing them, I'm all for it. So this is what I'm saying. Once you all start bringing your ideas to the table, please make sure that you just don't give those ideas. Take action. Make sure those actions are taken and that you continually work together to help each other and to promote each other's organizations. One of the biggest things that I have been working on pretty much on the West Coast is, and everybody knows California is, I think they're worse than Rhode Island in terms of their budgets on the state side. Most funding has been cut on the state side of California. So what I had to do was I had to start developing a new way of getting foundations and grantors to start looking at us in a different way. And one of those ways was co-partnering with other nonprofit organizations. A grantor or a foundation would rather give $10,000 to 2 or 3 nonprofit organizations rather than one. So one of the things I decided to do was to start putting this presentation together for most organizations so that they can understand. Collaboration is when 2 organizations are dedicated to work together to work to further their missions and sustainability. Your mission and is the most important element in co-partnering. Because you want to make sure that your mission and the person that you're co-partnering with there's a synergy between the two of them. And this is one of the ways that collaboration begins. Real collaboration is voluntary and should be inspired by a great opportunity. Do not do collaboration because there's a grant out there. That's the worst mistake that most people face. They start going, there's a grant here, let's try to get a partnership together and let's do it. That's not the way it works. It should be natural. There should be this great idea that both organizations are coming together and saying, wow, how can we help each other promote each other's mission? How can we help each other to promote each other's ideas? One of the things that I'm doing currently is with Ava Gallery. Ava Gallery, Benta has this wonderful, wonderful program in her education end for challenged students. And I said to her, this is where the community needs to see what she is doing with these students and how she's using education to help these students progress. And I said to her, what a great way to do a performance art piece with these students. So we're collaborating. They're celebrating the 40th anniversary this year, correct? And we're going to be doing a partnership in April, May, that we're going to be taking these students, putting them on Northern Stage, and they're going to discuss their self-portraits, and they used all mediums of art, and this is a way that they're going to be able to express themselves to the community. And I think this will be, the biggest goal that we're going to get out of here is that the community will start to see what Ava is doing. And it's a conscious thing, it's a social conscious thing, and I think it's one of the best things that could happen for Ava. Nonprofit partnerships come through one or two routes: meeting the minds between each group's CEO and board of directors, or by having the collaboration thrust upon by funders. Meaning, there's going to be somebody out there who's on a donor is going to say, I'm going to give you $20,000 because I believe in this project. That's one person's opinion. I want to give you $20,000. There are some good things and bad things about that. The 3 points of interest are partnerships where CEOs and board members recognize a mutual need, are often backed by both organizations' enthusiasm and strong mission goals. If a funder or donor puts the partnership together, the excitement will last only as long as the money does. The moment the funder moves on, the collaboration can fall apart. And that's so important that you make that, it's very clear to me that I have done this before where a donor says, here's $10,000, I want to give it to you. And then as soon as the money's done, there's nothing left, and there's no support. Whereas if a CEO and the board of 2 organizations are so excited about the project, it will last for a long time. If there is strong leadership on both nonprofit boards, and they both can let go of the egos of ownership issues, and they can establish that the credit will be shared between both nonprofits, then they can make the partnership work. You know, we're in an industry where there's a lot of, this is mine, and if it works, we're going to take the credit for this. You all have to understand, these partnerships have to be so worked well together in terms of each of you saying, here's my responsibilities, we'll both take the credit for it, and we're going to both work hard to make sure the partnership works. Successful partnerships. Board CEO believes strongly in the partnership. Both organizations approve stated outcomes, role responsibilities, and resource allocation. So important. One of the things that I've heard this horror story that recently about somebody went to get a grant, they got the grant, and the money never came through, so the other partner ended up having to put up the money for the rest of the project, which does it because there was not an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between the both organizations as to who was going to take care of what, the financial responsibilities, and what was going to happen, and the risks involved, who was going to take, the shared risks that they were going to both take. Very important, multiple forms of communications that keep all stakeholders in the loop. You know, Benta and I are continuously talking about this project that we're doing, and this is so important because the communications is not only between the 2 EDs, it's also, she's going to her board, I'm going to my board, I'm letting the staff know, she's letting her staff know. We have to keep everybody constantly involved in communications, and we have to let the public know what's going on. Remember, we're always dealing with donor dollars, so we want to make sure that our constituents are always informed as to what we're doing with their money. Ongoing face-to-face between both organizations to build trust and familiarity. That's there. Flexible mindset that understands that mistakes will be made and plans may change. This is really, nothing is perfect. You know, partnerships just sometimes may not run as smoothly as possible, and there may be some pitfalls that we're going to handle. We just got to understand, yes, we're going to have mistakes made, but we'll fix them and we'll continue going on. An agreement, an MOU for canceling the agreement if the partnership is clearly not working. That memorandum of understanding it can be drafted on anything. I usually like to have lawyers look at our MOUs because they'll know that what's our risks and liabilities, what are each other's responsibilities going to be, everything would be put down on paper. This way there is nothing that is not black and white. When there is an early evidence of success that is shared by both organizations, you need to assure everyone that the collaboration is on the right track. You know, we tend to wait till the end of the event is over with. I'm more about, as the event goes through, we want people to get excited about it. So we're going to let people know from the onset that yes, it's working, and we're going to continue to make it work. When partnering with another partnership, draft a written agreement with the collaboration partners. Have all expectations and responsibilities of the parties in writing. Always advisable to have it reviewed by legal counsel. Whose insurance will cover a bad case scenario? That's important. And one objective of any partnership is to protect the nonprofit's tax-exempt status and avoid private benefit transaction. It's very, very, very important. That 501c and the nonprofit status, you want to make sure that you're protecting yourselves. So, beginning is inspiration. That's the beginning stages of collaboration. The inspiration, will come from, that's just an idea. We're formulating an idea. We're creating this new marketing thing that we're going to do together as a team. So there's nothing that is written down. But then we get to the formalization. That's when you get your MOU started. And you sit down and you say, okay, this is what your responsibilities are. This is what my responsibilities are. What are our goals? What will be the end goal by the end of the project? We go into operation. Operation is getting actively involved. That's the course of the partnership and to meet its final goal. And then the benefits are each organization has the opportunity to tell their story. They can inspire community support and awareness, and my biggest one, they can broaden each organization's donor base. You all want to broaden your donor base. Doing collaborative work, it will be able to do that. I mean, I know that with AVA and with what I'm going to be doing in Montpelier and in Concord, I'm going to broaden my base of donors in a major sense because we're now reaching out to other organizations outside of the Upper Valley. So there are ways of working with each other so that we're seeing each other's donor base come through. Next steps. Oh, no, that's it, right? Yes. So one of the biggest projects I'm working with right now is Alice in Wonderland is celebrating its 100th anniversary this next year. And one of the things that I've wanted to do for a long time is get the libraries involved, which would be the literature. There is an opera involved in Alice in Wonderland, so get Opera North involved. There's our theater that can do theater presentation. And then I said, why not simulcast this throughout the state of New Hampshire and Vermont? So what I did was I went to Montpelier, which in Vermont, I went to the capital and I said, look, this is what our project is. They're going to do a major big tea party right on the lawn of the front. So we're going to have a tea party there. I'm going to Concord because I want to see something happen in New Hampshire and Manchester. And then I'm going to go here to the green here by the campus and do another tea party. So we're going to simulcast this tea party to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Alice in Wonderland. So now I've incorporated libraries, colleges, universities, the political venues, and now what I've done is I've broadened my base, and now I've gotten so many people involved in this that the potential for the amount of people that are going to see this are thousands. This is the type of collaborative work that will work successfully for everyone, because everyone will get a piece of that pie. So, are there any questions? Good? Yeah, one second. Yes?
When you're kind of getting that inspiration, thinking about what partnerships you want to work with, how do you weigh the risks of how do you know if that idea, that opportunity is going to be worth your time and your money and your resources?
Well, it depends upon, like with the AVA situation. I know that for us, we're not going to benefit from it as much. We're more of the presenting venue for AVA. But I know that in the community will see that we are actively being part of this community. We're actively helping another 501c, and we want to because it's a part of education. That's been my biggest mantra is education. So my risks involved will be very minimal because it's basically I'm allowing Benta to bring her students to us, and then she presents her her students and her education program to the community. In a partnership where something like this is going to happen with Alice in Wonderland, there is major risks because there's a lot of money involved that I'm going after sponsorship for. I'm going after major corporations that are coming in to sponsor the simulcast. I have to carry through to all of these people to say, yes, you're endorsing these projects. And if it doesn't happen and something doesn't work, then the responsibility is going to lie on me to say, here's $100,000 of sponsorship money that I received. What happened? Why didn't I do that? So those types of risks I take very seriously because I want to make sure that I got my I's crossed my T's. I do a lot of due diligence work in terms of making sure that we get the program set up and we get it active and we get it going. You've got to be very, very careful that, well, like I said, that the responsibilities for the partnerships are clearly defined so that if you're going to do X, Y, and Z and I'm going to do A, B, C, that it's spelled out and that the risks is going to be 50-50 and that we're both going to take our own share of everything that's going to happen here. That's why it's so important to have that MOU. It's very important to have everything spelled out on a sheet of paper. Yes?
Or just a point, you know, Vermont has 16 Vermont interactive television sites that maybe you could connect simulcast with 16 different towns.
That's great. Yeah.
And so you can add on to the people see.
Right. I'm actually working with another organization that I just had a meeting with yesterday on Robert Frost, to be able to do, there is a Frost presentation that they do, and they're looking to simulcast through 50 states to the underserved areas where these students can get to this. So that's something on website simulcasting to be able to get into the education facilities to be able to do something. And that project is going to be huge because we're talking about it's good. We're talking about 50 states, not just New Hampshire and Vermont. So it would be an exciting project for all of us.
Let's turn it around a little bit and open it up to you guys. Have you had a collaborative project that has worked?
Yes,
How about a collaborative project that has not worked? And maybe if you could just help us understand where you've been in some of the work that you have already done. Anybody want to say? Louis?
Yes. This is a sad little story. Quite a few years ago, we had a very energetic executive director at the Upper Valley Music Center. When the recession hit, unfortunately, we could no longer pay her salary. But in the meantime, while she was there, she observed that in the city of Lebanon, there are half a dozen powerful and energetic profit and nonprofit arts organizations. It's not generally realized. We think of arts centers, we think of White River Junction, we think of Hanover. But Lebanon, in fact, has, besides our music center, the Opera House, the Ballet School, AVA, North Country Community Theater, is headquartered there. So it's big. The home show came around, and Krista observed that they were inviting, well, the first time we went to the home show, we had our own table, committed to it and so forth. The next time around, Krista went to these arts organizations and said, why don't we get together and share a table at the home show? For the first time, the Lebanon arts organizations did something together. They shared a table at the home show. They developed a brochure that gave us names that we handed out and so forth and so on. So after Krista left, the next year I started calling around and said, you want to do this again? No. We don't have the time, we don't have the resources, our people are busy doing this and that. So we just didn't go to the home show at all, and that was the end of that. And again, we stood back looking at Lebanon and saying, what's going on here? Why doesn't this city recognize that it's a center of arts in the Upper Valley? So that was, as I said, a sad little story.
I have a story.
Good one? We want a good one.
Well, this is good, and one of the challenges, which repeats what Louis said about smaller organizations lacking the personnel to follow through when the opportunity is available. 6 or 7 years ago, perhaps, a number of Upper Valley organizations, NCCT, Rebels North, Opera North, I think the Shakespeare folks, did a wonderful needs assessment of what each of the organizations that was in this conversation needed. And the most common thing was each one of these groups needed space to store things, costumes, props, sets, needed a place to work, to build things, needed material, and needed personnel to person those jobs. This evolved into a grant that started what was called the Center for Theater Craft, which was your neighbor. We were in the right in the floodplain of White River Junction, but we, Rebels North, NCCT, shared a costumer, shared storage space, shared construction, props and costume construction space, and set building place. Opera North was involved really at that point just for storage. The conversations about other things that we could do, in which we could collaborate, never got terribly far. However, Hurricane Irene obviously ended that very quickly. NCCT lost even more costumes than we did. And that space was gone. That was gone. We were homeless. NCCT and we actually did find a place together in Lebanon, and we're still together. But the personnel and the energy to really make something of this hasn't happened yet. So it's good. It's bad in that hurricanes come along,
Right.
and can be devastating. The difficult thing is mobilizing and finding ways to work well.
Well, and I think this is why the alliance is so important, because this is a way, something like this is important for you guys to formulate and to share those types of ideas so that they can be worked on and generated. You know, I'm seeing, not just here in Vermont and New Hampshire, I'm seeing it in DC, I'm seeing it in Philadelphia. 501Cs are shutting down right and left because they don't have the funding, they don't have the support. Everybody's going after that same slice of the pie. And I look around here, and there's 80,000 constituents in the Upper Valley area. 80,000 people that live here. And there are so many nonprofits here, and everybody is going after each of those 80,000 people to either for donor dollars, for patronage, for advertising, for anything. And there's so many ways that we can collaborate together, that we are working together to share this and not have to step on each other's toes and fight each other to get each other's dollars. What you're saying is absolutely correct. That type of a situation is sharing costumes, sharing props, sharing building scenery, having one set place to do all your scenery work, that everyone on the Alliance could go and say, okay, kid, I need this done, I need this. These are important things that will cut costs down for each of you in your own 501Cs. But if we all pool together this ideas and the money resources, there's ways of making it all work for everybody. Everybody can get a slice of that pie. Yes?
I have a positive story, and there are two parts to it. I'm a choreographer, and the first collaboration with someone with a group here was St. Gaudens, and I went and looked at all the sculpture there and did a piece at St. Gaudens based on the art that he had made. And then realized that a lot of my other choreography, some of it had been off of some other works of art. So I went to Benta and took a piece called Museum Pieces into her gallery, which was based on particular pieces of art, some well-known, some not so, that was, and the dances that I created were small enough to fit in a gallery. So I'm always interested in mixing art forms, not just staying in our own little pasture.
Right. And you know, that's an interesting point to bring up. In Rhode Island, I partnered with the Domestic Violence Resource Center in terms of promoting awareness about bullying. I mean, it was about 2 years ago that it was prevalent, especially with what happened in Connecticut and Massachusetts with some of the suicides that were happening because of bullying. So Domestic Violence Resource Center and the Women's Club of America decided to partner with my organization, which was the Courthouse Center for the Arts in Rhode Island. And we went We went global on it. We actually got it down through the DC area. We were getting NEA grants for the funding on it because it was a major issue to get into these school systems. Using art as a way of communicating about the issues, and it was a wonderful synergy. It was a wonderful partnership, and it was progressive, and it continues to move forward. That's the sort of stuff that you're right. You just don't have to be in the arts. And one of the things that we've talked about is, and it's one of those items, is it doesn't even have to be another nonprofit. There are businesses out there that want a brand with a certain organization because they have something that they want to promote. And promoting it with a nonprofit will help them, and it will help you because you'll get the underwriting and you'll get the sponsorship from them to continue going on. So there are so many ways to do partnership work. It's exciting. It really, truly is exciting if organizations can really rally together and start doing some more of this collaborative work.
Dan, you should say a word about the Choral Arts Foundation. That's a pretty good example of cooperation among a specific group of arts organizations.
Well, yeah, Patricia and I are here representing the Choral Arts Foundation of the Upper Valley, and if you're not a singer, you've never heard of us. But in fact, we are a foundation. We're among the folks who give out money. We raise money in order to give it away to organizations, and our board of trustees consists of a number of representatives of usually choral organizations, choruses in the Upper Valley, roundabout. And so I think that's what Louis is referring to. But I am reminded when you're talking about collaboration, we are about to embark on. When you go over to the propaganda table over there, you'll see a item like this called Save the Date, Gather at the River. And this, what's involved here is that the Choral Arts Foundation, which is a 501c3, is bringing together the American Choral Directors Association chapters of New Hampshire and Vermont to a conference next summer, August 9th and 10th, I think it is, on the choral arts and choral music. And our purpose in this is to say, in Vermont, you're always looking toward Burlington. In New Hampshire, you're always looking toward the seacoast. Look, we're here, right in the middle. Come and see us, join with us, learn about one another, and promote the activity that we all care about. And in the process, we will bring in some local choral groups to take part in the program. So that's our big collaborative challenge right now.
And
Want to add anything to that?
The hope of Choral Arts Foundation is to encourage choral groups to work together and to for example, on the website, we try to keep a current calendar of concerts so that when people are scheduling concerts, they don't they don't schedule conflicting concerts.
You hit on the right point right there. And I think this is where every nonprofit in the Upper Valley could benefit from, is through the alliances to be able to get a calendar together or to sit down on a round table and say, okay, these are the events that I'm going to produce between January 1st through December 31st. And this way, we're not over-programming as a community, because that happens to be one of the biggest problems around here.
Right.
There's
too many things to do.
8 concerts at 8 different churches in one Sunday, and where do you, it's mind-boggling, because you want to be able to bring people to each of your concerts.
And another thing that we've done that I think actually could be broadened out of just the choral community is that we've tried to hold workshops for things that would be useful, and we've thought specifically in terms of the choral community, but things like website design. So website design is something or fundraising. How do you, getting advice from a professional fundraiser, or, which is something for smaller organizations. I mean, large organizations maybe have a better handle on that. But a smaller organization can't afford to bring in somebody to advise them on website, by themselves. But if you put 5 or 6 small choruses together and get somebody to come in to give a workshop on website design and how to really use your website and how to use your website to or social media, or all these sorts of things, then you can afford to get somebody who really knows what they're talking about to come in and educate you.
Which brings me to a good point, because now communities are now beginning, are starting to evolve and to construct or to formulate business and arts associations, where you have your major businesses in the area that become mentors to the 501c3 nonprofits. They come and they'll advise you. Here are ways of marketing, that successful businesses that know how to market on a corporate level. They can come in and mentor our 501c3 nonprofits and say, here are ways that you can promote. These are ways that you can advertise. Use social media. Use direct mailings. This Business and Arts Association has worked so successfully across the United States because these businesses, especially the businesses around our area in the Upper Valley, a lot of these places are dependent upon the arts because we draw in the tourism sometimes for them to get restaurants are filled up because of us. I can tell you right now, in White River Junction, Tip Top, and Elixir, they're packed Tuesday through Sundays because we're sold out Tuesday through Sundays on our Northern Stage side because people want to have dinner. So if Northern Stage were not there, would those restaurants be filled? You know, these are questions that, you know, these businesses have to take into consideration. The arts are just important to them as we are to, or the businesses are to the arts.
One thing we use, I know Ava uses, is a tuck school, and they'll come to you and give you free workshops, free talks in discussions of the topics you want in the fall of the year. People are going to end up in New York City in the major marketing schools, and they've helped us to know how to market ourselves, what becomes of public access television, everything.
We do the same. We have 2 interns that are currently on our board right now that will be working with us on our strategic planning. This is, utilize your university, utilize any of the businesses in terms of helping you be able to promote or maintain. I think that the thing about the website and the social media are important things. In today's age, you need social media. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. People are looking at that social media to get their marketing across. Yes?
I wanted to offer, my name is Libby Moyer. I've relocated to Vermont. I'm working with Carol at Flock part-time and making my way. I've formerly trained in theater and been in the motion picture and streaming background. I'm with Flock at the moment, but I'm an arts producer basically. I wanted to offer a couple of resources that are free. One is called Weebly, which is building your own website, and it's a drop and drag, including a pay window for a store. So all of the fine artists who are selling their work or prints of their cards can immediately start a store today through Weebly, and it's free. I think there's an upgrade if you're streaming video that it's $8 and $3 a month or something. The other thing for streaming video is through one of the major, I used to work in content delivery networks, is called Ustream, where you can upload your broadcasts. This meeting could be live streamed now, and we could have other executive directors talking with us now. So I have some resources to help people that are free and active. My biggest problem with Vermont and New Hampshire is with the federal government and the rural connectivity on the broadband initiative. And I'm finding that a lot of the resources that I could help people with in terms of social networking are impossible. I was living in Hollywood, an addict on a smartphone in New York and Miami, and did a lot of my business on a smartphone. I don't have connectivity any longer, which means I can't text, which is a free, or Twitter. So we could be tweeting out right now, sitting in the arts organization, the Choral thing, August 9th, White River. We can't communicate out of here. So the biggest problem in fundraising or drawing new audience members in, how do we get our message out when literally the connectivity is stymied by our geography? And it's really something that's very unfortunate. I've looked into it with Dr. Nolte, with EC Fiber, with friends of mine and who own FCC licenses, saying, why can't this be fixed? But I find that to be quite a detriment to the possibilities, and frustratingly so. And I wanted to know if this alliance in any way was involved with the rural connectivity, federal rural connectivity initiative, so that we could help stimulate our businesses.
Libby, actually, the question came up a couple of years ago at one of our last general meetings of arts people and alliance people. And yes, we observed this. I live in Thetford myself, and I don't get broadband. Nothing was done. Again, if the arts community could weigh in on this and
Correct.
explain perhaps to our state representatives how important it is for our specific corner of the creative economy, it'll help some. We don't have a lot of push, but they need to know from all of us that we need this, and we need it now. We need it last year.
I'd be very interested in that communication. I've also been working with the Small Business Administration because it's federally funded. The money that came in to connect us is through the federal government, and yet the pathways are it's very complicated, and I can start talking geek and everybody can glaze over. But I would think that would be a wonderful action step that this organization could make for creative communities in both a qualitative and quantitative sense. Whatever your art, whether you're painting or sculpting or dancing or theater or us all being together, we want to communicate with each other. So I'd love to be able to get to know you and send you something that I've made. You can't even stream it. Can I pick up a live stream if we wanted to do the kids thing and I put it on my network? Can I pick up a feed? I know how to do that. Can I do it? So I'm very, I would hope that this organization rally around that point of communicating our initiative.
I think that's the whole main.
I mean, I'm a new, excuse me, I don't mean to be a carpetbagger, but I found it frustrating, and I think it's helpful to you.
Let me ask you all this question. One of the things that we're talking about is ways to explore, to reach out to new audiences and to do something. If this is our issue right now in terms of our social media communications dilemma, how are you all doing it? How are you getting, is direct mail your only means of getting out your information and communicating to the public as to your events? Are you utilizing that, or are you going email blasts?
I'm a listserver addict. As long as all of you are on the listserver,
That's how you're all doing it?
I find I find that, and there's some mailings, yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm a new kid on the block, so I don't know anything.
what are ways that I mean, how many people have seen an increase in audience size between each of your fiscals in the last 2 years? Have you seen an increase? So yes, there are people. So what did you do differently that made it so that you were getting this increase?
We use constant contacts a lot.
Yes.
We use a newsletter, and we had an event with we call a Halloween-a-thon with Public Access TV, and Angelina is very great at that. She gives a once a month newsletter with listserv, and on the newsletter has video you can play.
Right.
And we had like 17 teams come to an event, and we expected about 5. And we increased it by, every time someone comes into our office, we put them on an email list, we put them on a newsletter. In constant contact, you can tell who opens it, when they open it,
Right.
and they can, of course, deny it. So we found constant contacts is a very good way to combine video and news information. So it really improved what we do.
Good.
I found that with a group that I run myself, separate from the Choral Arts Foundation, I run a singing school in Thetford that just started this fall, and I ended up with a surprising number of people, and I tracked where they came from, and it's tricky right now because my group is about split. About half of them came, more than half came from listserv. All of them check email and are now on email lists and follow email and listserv. But I still got people who came from posters. And I still got people who want print mailings, although I'm not sending print mailings. I'm not doing print mailings, but I still got people from posters. And CAFA still does a primary print mailing. And so what we're finding right now in CAFA is trying to have the volunteer energy to extend into social media
Right.
at the same time that we're still maintaining the print lists
Right.
and the printing costs and sustaining. So we're trying to juggle both at once. And I'm curious about, and so the idea of sharing printing costs with other organizations.
It's the way of, the co-op way of cutting expenses for nonprofits. This is the way people are doing it now. These communities are pulling together and saying, okay, we'll spend $10,000 as a community right now, and we'll all share in the expenses of printing costs, and it will minimize your expenses dramatically within a year. But I'm going to go back to this again. It's interesting because in Northern Stage, our subscription base is pretty much 50 plus in terms of age. I'm finding that the majority of the people on our subscribers tell me they don't have computers, or there is no access to computers. So they depend on that direct mailing and that brochure to come out to them and say, this is what's going on. And it's so interesting because what I need to do to expand our market is to go to the 30 to 50 range. I know that range will deal with social media, with the tweets. They will be the ones that are going to get the e-blast. They're the ones that are going to see, oh right, this is exciting. They're doing the show. I'm going to come up and see it. And it was interesting. We did this for Born Yesterday. We did some tweets for Born Yesterday. We increased our tickets. It was dramatic. It was 5,000 hits to our website because of those tweets. And it was an exciting part to see that those tweets were working. We did, I don't know if you took Cyber Monday, if you took advantage of Cyber Monday, which is like Black Friday after Thanksgiving, we did Cyber Monday. We sent out for Peter Pan this discounted price per ticket. We literally brought $10,000 worth of ticket sales on Cyber Monday just by going on that e-blast. You utilize your social media. Do the work and get that stuff out. Yes. Anything? Yes.
I'm Amy Fortier. I'm with North Country Community Theater, and we've been much more active in using our Facebook page.
Yeah.
And it helps for us because we have one and half of our shows is a teen show. So obviously they are all over Facebook, sharing it, taking it over. But that works very, very well for us, and people are starting to learn, like especially things for when our auditions are, when our classes are. They're starting to learn. Our audience is learning where they're going to get it.
There you go.
As opposed to, we're waiting for this newsletter that's never going to come.
Absolutely. You have to educate the audience to be able to get them to those sites.
We're in a transition.
You need to transition them. You need to get actively involved with telling your constituents, go to the website. Go see, look to where this media is coming from. And that's, I'm telling you, if you can get people to get off direct mailing and get into social media, that's another an expenses that you'll see dramatically within your organization. Big time.
Suzanne, you had something?
Yeah, well, I was just going to go back to the print media. So I'm at the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen. We do classes, and we send out a brochure twice a year. One in August, which goes from September through March. And in January, I will get telephone calls from people signing up for classes based on the brochure that they got in August, because they still have it.
Wow.
And I have to say, for Northern Stage, I go back to the print brochure. So people do keep this stuff, yeah.
And Suzanne, how successful are you putting that in the Valley News now?
That's how, so we mail it, we have a big database of names which we mail out, and then it's distributed in the Valley News, and that's huge for gaining new audience.
Yes.
There's a company called Fresh in West
Yes.
Lebanon
Yes.
that specializes in marketing, and obviously they'd love to have all of our business. They offer several times a year a really good workshop that's for free on how to develop your marketing technique. And their big thing is how to have a consistent message across every possible media you can possibly get into. And they also give one private consultation to your group that's really focused on your own needs, and that's for free. And we've done that and really learned a lot. We can't attribute our increase in ticket sales for our Christmas show this year to that because we just started doing all of this. I think the thing that we did this year that really saw a jump was that we had a series of 6 or 7 free events in the Upper Valley in the 3 months leading up to the Christmas show, including an academic lecture on the early 20th century Irish immigration, which was the content of our show, you know, various concerts and pub sings and that sort of thing. And classes, they were all free, and they were deliberately in sort of specialized and different audiences, and that brought in a lot.
Can I ask Bill Coons to speak up a little bit, because I know he's kind of one of our new odd ducks in the community, and he's been able to get a really great reputation going. If you keep listening, I'm saying good things, Bill. He's been really putting some pretty impressive theater out there, and I'd just like to ask him to share what's working for him. Yeah, try. Just try.
Wow, if I knew, gee. We don't use any direct mail anymore. It's just inordinately expensive. And so I also use Constant Contact, and I do repeated email blasts. I don't know, we were up, our season passes were up 53% last year, and our audience size was up between 17 and 18%. I've got to tell you, I think in a community this small, you said what, how many?
80,000.
80,000?
80,000.
That's a pretty small community to have this much stuff going on.
Yes. Big time.
There's nothing that has increased what we've done more than word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there was some way to bottle that, because that's really what it's done. The other thing we've done is, I'm sure, Russ, you've done things like this too, promotions to the season subscribers and say, bring 2 friends, and so we've gotten a lot more people who have come because we invited them and it's free.
I think Sheila hit upon something that's so important, is those lectures and those free events that you give the community are so important because they draw the community in to your organization, and they get a chance to see something that may not be seen having to pay a $35 to $65 ticket to come see a Northern Stage production. I am such an advocate of being community-minded, getting the community involved with your organization, letting them become a part of the organization, because if you don't get them drawn in and you don't get them actively involved, they're your constituents. They're not going to stay around. One of the things I had talked to Joanne about was, you know, the New York Times does this wonderful thing on Sunday. They do this major Sunday Times listing of all our gallery openings, show openings, everything else like that. That is something that possibly the Alliance can take on, is that everyone that would be part of the Alliance would be able on a Friday or a Sunday, whatever the big paper day is, what is it? Thursday. Have this one-page listing of every show that is going on for the weekend. This way, people have a chance to see the full picture, instead of, oh, Bill's got this show going up here, Northern State's got this show going here. You have to go through so many other means to find this other stuff. This is one way that the Alliance can work together in terms of communicating to the community what's going on. And it's worked successfully in a lot of places.
I think that the Upper Valley News, if you take that concept and apply it to a publishing platform,
Right.
where you're streaming in sort of 7 days from Burlington, Upper Valley News.
You mean Valley News?
Valley News, I'm sorry. And you could collate through software
Right.
an active calendar of events, because they all of those sites print those things out in either, you know, free newspapers, giveaways, electronic
Right.
newspaper, and print, so that the Alliance could therefore receive that feed into its site, and where it's being managed by a publishing company.
Right.
That's just software backend.
Yeah.
I would think more than postings. The hardest time I'm having with the internet for me is everything is now linear. So everything, the next idea pops up on top and it leaves you out of context. So I'm discovering it in my reading, if I might see your event to come and explore Rebels, and it's free, and then it's somewhere on a list that it gets sedimentized. What stays on top seems to stay on my mind, and if I don't pull that and bookmark it, I lose it as for my own calendar. You know, that's the difficulty with mass listings, I find.
Yeah, for somebody, the average consumer to be able to see down the list page, this is what the gallery openings are going to be, this is what the music, they have an option to say, okay, now I can pick from column A, column B, column C for the weekend and say, oh, here,
Right.
I've got it all on my front of me, and it's a lot easier for them than to have to go through a whole rigmarole to get to find out what each organization is doing. And I think marketing-wise, it helps the organizations because you're all there. It's out there for everybody to see so that they can choose from the listing. And it makes it more effective for the consumer. We have to be conscious of the consumer. You've got to be making sure that we are accommodating them, making it easy for them to come to us, rather than we're having to drag them to us. I mean, and this is one of the issues that has been a very important issue for most nonprofits right now.
The Valley News does a lot of this. They may not do it in the most user-friendly way, but many of us are already advertisers with the Valley
Within
News.
that publication,
Right.
exactly.
And maybe it's worth including them in this discussion so that they can look to, not just to serve us, but to serve their readers
Right.
with a more effective format, since we're already advertisers.
Right, and we are too. I mean, we all pay advertisement into the Valley News, but how easy would it be for us to cut that expense down a little bit if we're all utilizing one form of advertisement together as a group? That's what I'm saying. That's another way of minimizing
Well,
expense.
and if the listing in the Valley News was more reader-friendly,
Right.
then their readership could go
Go
up.
up.
Would
Because
increase.
people are
Right.
looking to pick up that Thursday paper and say, okay, this is going to be a helpful tool in planning the weekend instead of,
Right, right. Just ways of thinking about better ways. Yes.
I point to the job the Valley News does with summer camps. They arrange them on a whole page. Nobody gets more than 2 or 3 lines. If they're willing to do that for the summer camps and education programs, why not for the arts?
Right.
That's a very expensive form of advertising. If they would have to reduce their rate on that. That is a very, I have to say, as a person who utilizes
A print person.
Well, no, you have to, if you're running summer camps, you have to be in that listing.
Uh-huh.
At, what is it, $100 a shot?
A pop, a listing, right, yeah.
Isn't it?
No, it raises a further question, which is
Well,
something
it's
that's been
still-
on my mind for many years.
$40.
They have a sports editor, they do not have an arts editor. The Valley News has not joined this conversation. We invited
invited
all
them.
of their better arts people to come, but they are not here with us today. And it's hard to know how to approach the Valley News with information about the arts, or in our case, and Linda's too, arts education, which falls between the arts page and the education page. I yield to
I don't know where I fit. But I have found that I actually bypass them, and I now go directly to Richard Wallace. I go right to the advertising department, and I just say, arts, go away. And he takes care of me.
Wow.
I really have found that's the best way.
Interesting
I
point, too,
also
about
need
Rich
to make
Wallace.
one other comment. If you still do print, and that's one of your medias, there is nothing like the correctional institutions for a price.
Really?
They don't close, and you can get excellent printing done at the Correctional Institute at a very low price.
There you go.
So
There you go.
I have
That's
used them
excellent.
also. You simply
That is
call the
excellent.
Correctional
Good for
Institute and
you.
say, may I have the print shop, please?
That's awesome.
And they will print.
That is awesome. That is brilliant. It is
The
great.
only time it's difficult is August, because they do all the print work for the schools, but they do programs, they do everything.
Are you talking about Windsor facility?
No, I'm talking Concord.
Oh.
Do they use recycled materials as well?
Oh, yeah, yeah, they'll do anything you want. They'll do
Go
green.
green.
The one thing, your communication with them has to be very clear,
Right.
because nobody can pick up an email. You have to know exactly who
Right.
you're talking to.
That's
But I
excellent.
have saved thousands of dollars, and I'm a big fan of Steve Whitman and Whitman Press, but he knows that he can't beat the guys in the Stripes.
Guys in the orange suits, right?
I want to steer
That's
us, we're
great.
quarter to 11 right
Brilliant.
now. We want to break out into our groups right now so that we can figure out what our next steps are for each of these tasks. So how do you want to do this?
Well, it was going to be easy, but I think it's going to be difficult with everybody in their chairs. But it does look like there's 3 really solid ways that you guys might want to work together, and there's a lot on the first one, which is outreach to new audiences. I think if we could just keep in our seats, because I don't want to have to break up. You're sitting right now, it'll take too much time to move seats around, and we just kind of, let's feed off of one another with some ideas. I'll take notes and get these back to you. I know where you live, because I've got your names on all those stickers, so I'm going to be able to at least get back to you with, now you signed up for this, how would you like to approach your work? So if we could just do a shout out and just pling on the 3 issues. I'll take some notes and let's go. Can we go from there?
Yeah, let's
We do it
start.
like
Let's
that?
start with exploring ways to reach out to the audience.
Well, I think we hit on that
Yeah,
already.
right.
Education,
Yes.
education is one of our major factors.
Right.
And I think that we all have numerous ways of using our arts as to educate. I mean, I teach ballet, but ballet is, and our ballet company incorporates many other, I mean, if I'm going to educate somebody about Giselle, I'm going to need art, I'm going to need numerous avenues, and I'm going to need more people to help me educate you about the ballet Giselle. So I need your help to do that education, and that will bring audiences.
Great.
We need to understand who our audiences are, that is to say, segment them. We talked a little bit earlier about older audiences or people who don't have access to the internet or are not comfortable with social media. I think if we're going to advertise effectively, we need to know who we're advertising to and what's the best way to reach that particular population. This is something we touched on earlier, but I think it's a very important point.
We need to know the 80,000 constituents that are in the Upper Valley area. What are the socioeconomic categories, or our age groups in those groups?
That all exists, that's good.
I'm saying, but as an organization, if you don't understand that, there's no way for you to market. You all have to be taking the time to really learn about your constituents and to expand your market. You know, it's interesting. Our expansion, I've heard from a lot of executive directors that they only have the Upper Valley is where they're getting their people from. The Hop, I was talking to Jeff 2 weeks ago before I left for London, and he said to me, we don't get a main line of people coming in from Montpelier or Concord. We get people from this area. So my thing is, how do I expand Northern Stage? I have to either go out of the Upper Valley and go into Concord and Manchester, and how am I going to do that? One way is through Comcast, going through on more cable and doing more television work in terms of commercial work to get people in here. That's what I'm saying. You've got to really understand the market, you've got to understand the constituents, and you've got to understand who you're attracting, who's going to come to see your venue to see your product.
Let's move on to marketing.
Marketing. Create one significant marketing opportunity to showcase the arts this year.
This year?
Well,
or whatever.
It's January.
This year.
This year, this calendar year. Yes.
Quick comment on Rich Wallace. He can literally save you thousands of dollars by just tweaking a column. The guy's good. He returns your phone calls, and he's good folks. But as far as marketing, great believer in cross-pollination.
Excuse me, could
At
you?
the Valley News. Oh, the advertising guy at the Valley News.
He's the director of
Would
advertising.
you like to know how I know him? Rotary.
There you go.
Rotary. Join your
Rich
Rotary Club.
Wallace.
Join your Rotary Club. Become a voice in your business community.
How many people belong to Chamber of Commerce or Rotary on here?
I'm Rotary.
Rotary. That's interesting. How many people are in Chamber? Yeah,
are you getting stuff done through the chamber well? I didn't phrase that, but have you been successful working through the chamber?
Not always.
No.
They're a little slow.
Really?
They have a hard time understanding deadline. That, performance is going to go up on a certain date, and if you
Right.
haven't put that information out when you're expected to, you're not helping us.
We found them very helpful after the flood. I mean, they found a space or emergency space.
And don't forget that you're dealing not just with one chamber. And
Right.
Yes, that's
Linda, you're probably talking about the Lebanon Chamber.
Lebanon's a little bit.
And the Hanover area has its own priorities. We've worked with both for several years, haven't got much back from it.
What about vital communities? How many people here are involved in vital communities?
We had a conference that last summer that brought together a bunch of arts people with Mary Margaret Sloan as the new executive director. And essentially the message that we took back from that was that vital communities had their irons in so many different fires that they were not really ready to take on the arts as well. But we planted the seed, and it may be that as time goes on, they'll see things differently.
Okay, anything else? Yes?
Cross-pollinate. I'm a great believer that everybody in this room, they do things that other people in this room would like to avail themselves of. And just taking a quick look at constant contact and taking a quick look at what you're doing, Joanne, talking about, would it be possible for the website to be a website, but then take a slightly more aggressive stance and send out emails weekly, monthly, as to what's specifically going on in each particular genre? And when you do something like that, constant contact is very anal. And if somebody says they're not into it, they push that unsubscribe key, and it takes an act of God to get them regurgitated. So where I'm going is, you could literally build a database by shooting out what Russ's folks are doing at Northern Stage to all of our constituents. And they, if in fact they're not interested, they hit the unsubscribe. But there, you're penetrating that, not quite the 80,000,
Right.
but where you're coming from, you're creating a database. And the people that don't like it are going to hit the unsubscribe. And the people that do, all of us are reaching those people.
Yeah, exactly. That's excellent. That's an excellent point. How many people do surveys?
Survey monkeys.
Survey monkeys.
We use them.
Yeah. Utilize them. They're important in terms of understanding what your patrons are looking for and what they want. Very important.
I can say one more thing about the question on the table about a mass marketing thing. I would vote against it. What I really like are the sort of emerging ideas for being smarter about strategy for collaborating on ongoing. For example, the conversation with Mary Margaret at Vital Communities. There's a reason, there's a history why Vital Communities chose to focus on the areas that it focuses on. And there is no reason that the arts could not become one of them over time.
Sure.
And that's the kind of conversation I would like to have. That would have marketing implications up the wazoo.
And again, these are ideas. They're not necessarily set in stone. They may not work for these areas. In a city area or an urban area like Philadelphia, it does work at doing a mass marketing in terms of having, it just depends upon what the needs are of the organizations and what's a need for the community. And we've got to, again, I go back to what are the community needs. We've got to make sure that they are given the information that they need and what they want to see. You know, that's what you have to figure out, is what do they want? What's going to make it easier for them to go to the ballet, to go to see Rebels, or to go to an art opening at AVO? How do they want to have this communication sent to them? Let's go on. Start a conversation with a potential new business partner to your mutual benefit. Yes?
I think one of the things that happens, because we are an 80,000 constituent and we have a certain number of businesses, we all hit all of them up.
Hit them all.
They're like, mercy, stop, head up. And so,
How many times can you ask Mascoma Savings Bank for money?
Oh my
exactly,
goodness.
exactly.
Oh.
So they have to,
Unless
I'm
you
sure
speak Christie.
I'm sure they feel things for us too, but that's the difficult part, I think, because we don't want to, I know what we want to do, except we don't want to inundate them with our requests.
It's hard. It's hard with
Well,
businesses.
You know, I'm just thinking, so I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia before moving here, and it was a developing city, and the arts organizations went to the city council and talked about what their needs are. And I'm thinking about Northern, Rebels North and stuff like this, you know, they need space and what have you. And so one of the things that the city council did, and they did this for low-income housing as well, if you're a developer and you're going to build X number of units, you have to provide 2 low-income housing units in that group. Oh, you're building a mall or a plaza or some kind of a development, you have to provide space for a nonprofit organization. And they ended up with, there was a group of nonprofit organizations that ended up with a building for their storage, for their buildings, for their what have you. You know, Lebanon, what are they doing on Route 120? That's a, you know, that would be a great place to start.
Amy, your point is so well taken, because I think we automatically go to these businesses for the dollar. And we're looking for that dollar instead of thinking about what can a business do other than the dollar to help us? What kind of in-kind can they give us in terms of helping us? Like possibly getting their web or social media person into your organization to say, we're going to donate our services to you and we will get you up and running on all social media. We have to start thinking, we're so at the mindset, we need the dollars to underwrite their sponsorship, where we can take some of their in-kind services and utilize them in terms of, as a substitute in terms of, instead of just getting the dollars.
I was just here to echo what you're saying. I'm particularly interested in this topic, and I have a very strong feeling that there's a lot more to it than simply going to a business and asking them for money. We are a music school. We work closely with Vermont Violins, which started in Montpelier but has a shop now in West Lebanon. Vermont Violins probably would not have opened that shop if it hadn't been for the Upper Valley Music Center, which provides string lessons to 300 or 400 kids. We have a close working relationship with Alice Music as well, on very much the same lines. More than that, we have requests from local businesses to have our kids who perform come and play, especially at Christmas time. You'll hear them at LL Bean or in the Powerhouse Mall. We've had a very generous in-kind support for construction and renovation work that we've been doing at our center. We had 10 guys from Hypertherm, guys and gals, come and paint our walls for us. They were delighted to do it. A couple of them have come back and said, we want to take music lessons. Now, what's wrong with that? There's lots of ways to deal with businesses. I would say, for example, we were hoping that we get representation from the Norwich Bookstore here. It's very important for folks at Bloodroot that magazine be available at the Norwich Bookstore and at Barnes & Noble in Hanover. It's a natural, people come in and say, you know, I want to find out, my friend so-and-so has written a volume of poems. Do you have it? Yes, it's right here among the regional writers.
Right. There you go. Yes?
Well, years ago when I went to maybe the first meeting we ever had to form this alliance, this idea was brought up. And since then I've thought about it. And I have a different take on what this means, having a business partner. And to me, it's like that each of our organizations would find one other business around here that we would really be a partner with, that we would show up at things that they're doing, have part of what we do infiltrate into what they do. It's a little like there's the creative people and then the other people that kind of think differently, and that they need to be mixed up. And so I often thought the thing is for each of us to pick one business that we feel we can dance with and creatively work with them. And they become our sponsor in our paraphernalia, and we do creative, sort of interesting things to spark up their existence.
So we're not just asking for money, we're giving back.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily need to go to the banks and to the main businesses that support the community so well. There are smaller businesses that would love to do some sponsorship or some underwriting, which may not be able to give the dollars that these bigger corporations or these bigger businesses can. But this vodka spirits place in Queechee, the distillery that just opened up. Do you all know about it? It's
It's not open.
It's not open, but I mean, I'm working something with them in terms of doing vodka tasting. They have this wonderful maple vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's incredible. Maple vodka martinis. It's perfect. It's a perfect collaboration for one of our shows. No sex, please, we're British. I mean, this is a perfect combination. This is what building those types of relationships are important. The smaller businesses are just as important. We got to keep them going, and they want to see us kept going because they want to be part of that arts.
Let's see if we can wrap up.
Let's wrap up.
Best way to wrap up is understanding these three issues, and I've got a bunch of notes here. Are we ready to say we can develop some teams? And what I think the three of us have talked about is not long term. We really want task force. We don't want anybody to feel, oh my God, I'm in this for a year. And because that scares the living daylights out of all of us. So if we're not ready to put some teams together, could we at least have a point person who would say, yeah, you know what, you guys have given me more information on the audiences. I'd really like to help be at least a voice in that area. What Russ and I and Louie have said is that we will be not only your coaches, but we will be sure that you find other committee people or steering task force people to keep this momentum at least, or start it and keep the momentum going. So if there's somebody that in that particular issue who would really, really like to see it be pushed forward, can I please see one can or two? Come on, guys.
I'm sorry, Joanne, can you, I'm not quite sure.
You're not sure what to do here?
What you're asking.
What I'm asking is we would really, all right, so right now we've got close to, it looks like 15 people here who are at least interested in the issue.
What are you looking for as an end goal?
The end goal is, let's find ways to explore new audiences.
We did.
Okay, but we did. Let's put them into action. Let's try and get a little self-help guidebook that will give, you guys are the best in the community. Let's be sure that everybody knows how to do this. You are in this room, you're sharing this information. Are you going to walk out of this room and forget? Maybe not, maybe. So all I'm saying is let's take it to the next step and be sure that everybody understands how are we going to be able to do this in the future. Carol?
Well, what I got out of being here today is what it feels like is what you're looking for. I mean, I have a list of maybe 8 or 10 things here that I learned, and I'm going to go home and do them or ask questions.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from is that we put this meeting together so that we could find ways to collaborate. I think that was the whole reason for our being here. And if our reason for being here was to collaborate, it wasn't to just sit here, pull all these ideas together, and then walk out of the room. What I'm trying to do is to find ways that we can continue to work together. And maybe that's not what you want to do, but that was the whole purpose that I was having in this. Yes, Carl Swick.
Well, I'll put my 2 cents up. I listen to folks talking and stuff. I target the people that I'm going to call, and I'll put my name and phone number out there. And anybody like to call me or let me wax poetic, I'm more than happy to do it. And it just, when I hear what you're saying, I think what you're talking about is all of us, if we can glean one little snippet of information from
Right.
the other one, how to move that forward.
How to move
I
that
second
forward
that.
and to share. But we
I'm
also
out there.
had about 3 or 4, maybe 5 other organizations. Those people could not come. They're going to be looking to me for a write-up, and I'd love to be able to share a piece of paper that gives us all that information. Okay, so if I can, I'll write you an email.
Okay, good.
Great.
Another thought quickly, Joanne, if anybody has an issue, I think that all the people on that email list, we should all email them and sort of say what we do.
Yes.
And once again, just unsubscribe, I'm in constant contact. They're really good about that. But I hear what you're saying as far as this, but please,
Yeah.
anybody that care to call,
Yeah.
I'll return their calls.
Amy?
One thought that I had while we were talking was about all these questions. We had questions, and I had questions in my head about different things, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if there were, and I don't know if you have this on the website, because I didn't explore it that detail, but if there were like a forum for people who are involved in the organization. Is there? Is that it? Was
Yes.
that a yes?
Yeah.
So we could put a question there and have each of us can answer,
Yeah,
or
that's a
sort
great
of
idea.
a listserv type thing for us to be connected. So if we have a question, what was that survey thing? Was it SurveyMonkey, and you have that?
Right.
That sort of thing. So
It's
it's a little
Amy,
less
on our website, it's called Exchange.
exchange.
And you can find that, I think it's the second or third button. And that has a couple of questions on it, but you could start your own.
Okay.
And
Can
that would
start
really
a
be-
discussion board, yeah.
Yep.
Julian, how many of us have physical locations that we are in? I mean, Northern Stage has a physical location, you sort of have one now. Okay, you know how the business does business after hours?
Yes.
Why can't we
That's a
have
great
arts
idea.
after hours? Why can't we come together more often and find out what we are doing? I mean, have a gathering at the Opera House and share all of our stuff. And we invite people who are interested in our organization.
So
And this is a great
My
way.
ballet school could be
Right.
open in an afternoon.
But this is a great way too,
Yeah.
doing something like this, to actually have maybe a little performance of what you all do.
Well, my problem is I can't bring ballet dancers in and perform just anywhere. And I always have that issue.
Right.
When people say, oh, let's do fundraisers at so-and-so's house. I can't put people on the grand piano, it doesn't work. I can't just have them sit down.
But you could
and
at your
play.
venue.
But I could at my venue.
Yeah.
And I think that, if we could all just find ways of gathering together and
That's-
sharing what we do.
That's a great idea.
And if Rebels doesn't have a place they could gather.
Well, we don't have a performance venue except
That's right.
for a
But
week.
I would be willing to open my door for Rebels to be the
Right.
hostess that night.
We're next door to you, our
I know
shop,
you
in
are.
Wickle Place.
Opera North, the same thing.
Well, first Friday.
So,
I think one of the things I think about the Alliance is that if we can get all of the arts organizations on that website, that will be giving us the best service we can do. So I think we should be talking to other organizations that aren't represented on there and get them to be on there.
Because indeed, we do have a
It's the only
calendar,
way it
and the
works.
gal who is in charge of that calendar is manning the video, and she does a really good job for us, but we're going to call on Libby and see how we might be able to do even better.
I'll just see if I can do a little wizardry. I would suggest that First Fridays in White River Junction, where you have a lovely venue and a lot of the painters and galleries at Tip Top, etc., that the Alliance itself could sponsor an evening to get to know the performances. Therefore, people aren't using resources to drive to various venues.
Right.
It's sort of counterproductive, but it's also lovely. I mean, Flock has danced there in a parking lot one. Sightings. We did a sightings to,
I think Linda's idea though is great, because I think it should
move the venue.
Yeah, move the venue.
Move the venue, make it
have
fresh.
something different at somebody's different place, because it's important that you all see each other's. How many have seen everybody's venues here? I mean, have you honestly been able to see every nonprofit dance organization in this group?
So you're envisioning almost an open house tour.
Right.
Okay.
We have freshly painted walls.
I have a new flooring. Not to take my hands off.
Joanne,
Yes.
your ability
Then the complete hoop was on the list. And
Right.
They do a free publication of all of our interests.
Yes, we need to get them on that
I'm
paper
surprised
as
they
well.
weren't on Jerry's.
Yeah,
Well, I know Jerry's ill,
yeah.
so I think Joe's okay.
The question about the forum on the website, I really want to speak briefly to this. I promised myself that I was not here to sell the website, but now I'm going to try to do it. It's really a potentially very powerful tool. We've set this thing up so that almost anything you can think of can be uploaded to that and presented to whoever turns up. Right now, it's underutilized because Joanne and I are both busy with other things. We need people from the outside to come in and contribute materials to us. We have a calendar that's working pretty well. I checked it out today. We can make that as long-term as we need. We have the forum. We have opportunities for individual artists to present mini galleries of their work. What we're going to do is to come back around to all of you in the next couple of months and say, look, we're going to ask for a very modest subscription fee so that we can pay Angelina to do this work for us. And I'm hoping that when this happens, you'll say, as a small nonprofit, I can afford $30 a year. As a big nonprofit, I can afford $60 a year. That's about as high as we're thinking of going. It's a small deal for you guys, but a big deal for the community. So do check that out. Look at the gateway and explore it, because it's full of nooks and crannies and corners that can handle just about anything you need. Now, Carlos raised the question of being more proactive with this information. We are doing this. We are working on right now, I think I call it a monthly e-newsletter, but this is something that we can develop in time too. I would remind you, though, that this kind of work requires the commitment of a paid person. I know this. I was a volunteer producer of a fortnightly newsletter that ran 25 pages to 450 subscribers, and after a couple of years, I have to say, it really got old. People were disappointed when we quit, but you need somebody who's actually earning some money to do this for you, and in order to get them to do that, you have to be able to contribute some money. Us, not the businesses, not the foundations, but us, the nonprofits, who are going to make ourselves into a more effective alliance. We've got to provide troops and ammunition.
Okay, we have to close out. What I'd like to just offer is that, send your emails to Joanne or to the Alliance. Let's get started on getting these after-hour type programs set up so that you can continually work together in terms of moving together as an alliance and an association that we can help promote. And I think that's where we're at right now. And you'll let them know?
Yes.
As
we'll put a calendar together. Louis and I will put a calendar together and email it to you. And just sign up for a month, or not a month, but a day in a month. We'll just do one a month and see if we could get some
I'll offer
things
the
going.
first venue.
Great.
That's great.
I open my mouth.
That's awesome.
And I'll put my foot in it.
And then I'll work with you on that.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That's great.
I'd like just one other person to be acknowledged. I invited this colleague of mine from the North Country because Fermi Selchin is probably in the most desolate part. And she has done wonders for the arts up there, and you had a point of view, and I'm really glad that you have it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to hear all this energy. I actually wanted to say something about the role an alliance can play in connecting you as a region to the rest of the state or the rest of the New England region, and wanted to tell you about two things. Joanne is your representative for the Upper Valley on the Creative Communities Network, which is a statewide creative economy initiative that you are all welcome to speak with her about, your issues. One of the things that network has been working on a lot is cultural tourism. And for example, we're going to be presenting a panel about the role of the creative economy in cultural and heritage tourism at the Governor's Conference on Tourism. And they're really anxious to have more representatives of cultural organizations there. It's kind of, as Linda was saying about being part of the Rotary, then you're part of the business community, you're not just going to the business community. Similarly, if you're interested in tourism, you need to be part of the hospitality industry and be connected with them. The other organization that I wanted to let you know about is the New Hampshire Arts Learning Network, which is a brand new and I think really important resource for everybody interested in arts education. And it sounds like at least half of you here have arts education related programs, or maybe more than that. And that right now is two things. It's a website, which is nhartslearningnetwork.org, and every one of you who has an arts education program is invited to put yourself on the map, and also to put your arts education programs on the calendar.
Even if you're from Vermont?
Well, thank you for asking that, and I apologize. It's been an issue, and it's been raised, and right now, no. But
The answer is nope.
But yeah, and it's not out of any kind. It's just one of those things at the moment, and we're trying to figure out what to do because, as you probably know, the State Arts Council actually does work with organizations that are across the
That's
border.
something that the Upper Valley chapter of
Right.
the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation could help with.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And the other thing is that there is a calendar there. There are also regular meetups for arts learning and arts education. And what we need for that is just a volunteer from the Upper Valley to host it. So the second one is going to be in Hampton, I think, I think it's February 7th. And if somebody from the Upper Valley wanted to host another one, you'll see on the website a way to get in touch. And I think my email is on here, so you can also just email me about any of those things.
Great. Thank you so much for coming this morning through this weather.
Thank you.